Next topic, Canada versus India over Khalistan issue. Khalistan issue. I think in G20 there was a meeting between Prime Minister Modi and PM Trudeau of Canada. They talked about the Khalistani issue, and apparently Prime Minister Modi scolded Justin Trudeau in diplomatic terms over the Khalistan separatists that Canada is giving refuge to, giving shelter to. And the G20 was considered to be a disaster for Canada. This G20 that happened in India was considered to be a disaster for Canada because of not just this, because also journalists asked Justin Trudeau about what was Canada's contribution to G20, to which he replied gender, language or something like that. And his plane was halted for 2-3 days. So this was a disaster for Trudeau. And maybe to cover up his disaster, maybe someone pushed him. He raised the issue of a killing of a Khalistani terrorist, Nijar, I think his name, short name. I don't remember the full name. Nijar. Let's just call him Nijar because of YouTube. It's pronounced, or is spelled rather, as Nijjar. Let's call him Nijar, okay? So he raised this issue in the parliament. India responded with harsh diplomatic words. Then Canada expelled Indian diplomats. India also expelled some Canadian diplomats and issued a statement about this, and issued a travel advisory for Indians traveling to Canada to be a little more cautious. And India also suspended visas for Canadians who want to visit India. Also, India declared Canada as a terrorist safe haven, which, to be honest, it is a terrorist safe haven. And Trudeau just said there were credible evidence and about India's involvement in killing a Canadian citizen, Nijar. How is he a Canadian citizen? Turns out he sought refuge in Canada under the fake name of Ravi Sharma. He was denied. Then he married a woman in British Columbia and tried to get Canadian citizenship. He was also denied, but later on he became citizen of Canada anyway, somehow, in I think 2007 or 2008. This individual, Nijar, was on Interpol's list. Let me repeat that again. This individual, Nijar, was on Interpol's list. This is not just some tyrannical Indian government cracking down on Sikh activists, as some media were portraying it as. How can it be just an activist and not a terrorist when his name was on the Interpol's list? After all that, Indian government asked Canadian government to provide evidence about India's involvement in killing of Nijar. And Canadian basically gave different answer. Canadian government, they said there was open source intelligence, which is basically gossip on social media and Google. They also talked about Five Eyes being involved in this, and how it was US who provided Canadians with evidence about India's involvement in this in killing of this Canadian individual or Khalistani terrorist. Turns out another Khalistani terrorist, Pannu, is hiding in United States. And not only that, he is also a CIA agent according to Indian government. Pannu, Pannu, is a CIA agent according to Indian government. This only tells us one thing. Like I've said before, there are four big countries that are really empires disguised as nation states. Those four countries are United States, Russia, China, and India. And Soviet Union, after the collapse of Soviet Union, many new, smaller, weaker countries emerged. And I think many people in the West, the Western deep state, want to repeat that process of separation and balkanization with China and with India. And they have really good chance of accomplishing this in India. Not under the Modi government, but under some politicians, they have a good chance. After the India-Pakistan war of 1971, Pakistan wanted revenge on India. That's why in 1980s they funded these separatist movements in India. One of them was Kashmir. Second one was this Khalistani movement in Punjab. Third one is in the northeast, the Seven Sister States. And fourth one is the concept of Dravidianism, in basically dividing into India into north and south. And to an extent, this has worked. There are a lot of people who believe Northeast should not belong to India because of Indian government ignorance, previous Indian government ignorance of northeastern states. There are a lot of people living in Kashmir that don't want to be a part of India. They want a separate Kashmir. There are a lot of people in Kashmir who want to join Pakistan for some reason. There are some people in Punjab that want a separate Sikh state named Khalistan. But overall, this hasn't worked. And if anything, the lesson that Indian citizens should get out of this whole fiasco is that we must stay together at all cost. Whenever India was not united, India was weak. The last 1,000 years of foreign occupation happened because India was divided. Alexander the Great couldn't conquer India because at that point India was united. Remember that. But this small island nation, the United Kingdom, was able to do it because they divided and they conquered. And this is the strategy that United States pursues. That's just their geopolitical strategy. They have turned Eastern Europe against Russia. They have turned Eastern Asia against China. And they have turned Pakistan against India. Now, it's not just that US is this evil overlord who just created division out of thin air. There was some division. They just exploited it. They are trying to do it with Punjab, with Kashmir, with northeastern states, and with southern states of India. This makes it clear absolutely. That's just their policy. Keep the world unstable and ensure stability in United States so US stays on top. Russians have a different geopolitical strategy. Chinese have a different geopolitical strategy. And India has a different geopolitical strategy. It's just that's just the great game. That's just the way world works. If United States stops existing, there will be another power trying to play these games, geopolitical games. If you think that Russia and China and India don't play different kinds of geopolitical games, you're naive. If you think it's just America who's evil overlord, you're naive. But yes, that is America's geopolitical strategy. Divide and conquer. It is much more sophisticated and evolved version of the British Empire strategy of divide and conquer. That's what it is. And this whole Khalistan issue, it's slowly exposing that.